Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
It's going good, bro. Second round is upon us, and it's crazy. A lot of teams we weren't expecting to get this far, and a lot of teams with some questions in this offseason, considering the way they went out and kind of the way this entire season is starting to unfold now that we're in the second round.
Yeah, it's just super crazy. And I looked at one of your TikToks earlier. Like you talked about how each like number seed is like being represented in the playoffs so far in the second round, numbers 1 through 8, which kind of tells you how crazy the season has been so far. And we're gonna be getting to all of that in this episode. We have a lot, and I mean a lot, to talk about. So strap up. It's gonna be a good one. But before we get into this episode, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow our personal socials at TV on Basketball, at the Knockdown J, down on our down below in the link down in the links below, our personal accounts. And as for the Hit Your Free Throw podcast, follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on any of the podcast networks, Spotify or Apple. And remember, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode, potential multiple episodes a week. So be on the lookout for that. And we're just going to be giving you constant NBA content throughout the remainder of the playoffs and into the offseason. Jay, are you ready to talk some NBA playoff basketball?
Let's get it, bro.
Oh boy, we're gonna be starting off with a banger because we're gonna be talking about the one and only Steph Curry, and this is coming off a Game 7, the Sacramento Kings versus the Golden State Warriors, where the Golden State Warriors absolutely dominated the Sacramento Kings, especially in the second half, led by the main man himself, Steph Curry, who had the most points in a Game 7 ever. Let me preface that. Let me say that again. The most Game 7 points ever with a 50-burger. He absolutely dominated the Kings. 2 defenders, 3 defenders didn't really matter because Steph Curry just absolutely dominated, and also Kevon Looney, because Kevon Looney was an absolute menace on the boards last night at the time of recording, looking like Moses Malone out there. But Jay, I mean, after that series completed, the discussion has opened up again. Steph Curry, the best point guard of all time. This happened last year after the playoff, after they won another championship, and I think you came on the pod during this, at least my pod during the summer, and we discussed this a little bit. But now the discussion's opened up. Jay, where are you standing on this debate?
I think that where I stood on it beforehand, before this occurrence, was that if he wasn't already in that echelon, that he was definitely creeping up into us needing to have a much louder discussion about it. And I think the 50 burger does encapsulate how insane Stephen Curry is. But I think the main thing that's starting to really click is how much of a winning basketball player Steph Curry's style has become. I think a lot of people kind of get lost in the sauce of all the crazy theatrics that comes with all the three-point shooting and things of that nature. But I think that it really minimalizes how dangerous of a threat it's made Curry as an overall basketball player. It's come to the point where his three-point shooting, although it is his biggest weapon, it almost gets neglected of that there's so much of his game that's opened up by just the fact that he's that much of a threat. We saw it in that game, the 50 burger, a lot of his damage was actually done off the dribble, making penetration, getting to the paint, just being dangerous with dribble moves, but it's all predicated off of the fact that you have to check this man from half court in order to feel safe. You know what I mean? And I think one thing that's super interesting, and it's a conversation that can be brought up in terms of just his longevity, right? Because that's becoming a new element or a new standard bearer to this whole greatest of all time conversation, right? It's not just how good you were or how good you are, but how long you've been that good. JJ Redick on his podcast made a recent comment that said Stephen Curry won the MVP back when he was about 27, 28 years old, when he won MVP once and then won unanimous MVP the season after. But he believes that now Steph Curry at 35 years old might be the best version of himself that we've ever seen. TV, I think if that's a conversation we're having at Steph Curry's age as they continue to progress and he's coming off of last year's championship, if he's that good in our eyes, with the kind of progression that he's made, bro, he might actually be the best. He might actually be the best point guard of all time when you think about what he's done in terms of the game's transition, how long he's been able to do that, and his own individual progression moving forward as a basketball player, getting better and better every single season. I mean, it literally checks off every box we typically tag on when we talk about the GOAT debate. How good for how long, and what did it result in? All things can be said. Steph Curry's probably done it better than any other point guard we've ever seen.
Yeah, I definitely hear that case. And if you really do think about it, there's only two people in this discussion, and it is Magic Johnson and Steph Curry. Those are the only two guys you can really have this discussion with. Magic did it in his own way, obviously revolutionizing the game, making it more fun, the stylistic play of basketball, just to make it more fancy, more fun. The fast break, him and the Lakers, the Showtime Lakers, really used that to their advantage. And just him being like, a tall point guard, a very like dominant point guard at that, being the best player in the league at the time, really, especially even though it was only a short career, like was it like 12, 13 years, he still dominated, won the championships, won the MVPs and all that. I get it. He definitely is like, and there's a reason why he was the best point guard of all time for the longest time now. Steph Curry, though. Steph Curry. And maybe it is recency bias. I understand some people's arguments saying that people are doing this way too much out of recency bias. I get it. But I love the argument you just made there. The fact that we can look back at Steph Curry's MVP seasons. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago when we were looking through the lowest scoring MVP seasons. He averaged 23 points a game in his first MVP year. His 30 points per game in the second one. But we've been having the conversation, especially over the last 3 years. Is this the best Steph Curry we've seen? Is this the best ever? And the fact that we are at this point and we're still having that conversation, we have to have that conversation. And I'm not saying he is. In my personal opinion, I still think that Magic in a short time, even though in a short career, deserves to be still deserves to hold that number one spot in terms of the point guard debate. But it is a more serious conversation, especially regarding the fact that, sure, Magic did change the game, help save the game in the 80s. But when you look at what NBA teams are looking for around the league, when they look at even just the big man position, you need to shoot threes. And I think that all started with the amount and the volume of threes that Steph Curry has shot over basically almost the last decade. And the fact that the NBA game has revolved around the 3-point line. You can't tell me that Steph didn't start that with his incredible shooting back in the day. It's just continued to grow and grow, and Steph Curry has been at the forefront of that, and he's continued to do it so far this year. I mean, in the last game, in the 50-point performance, this guy attempted 18 threes, and I don't think that none of us can say that none of them were that we were either surprised or we think that's too many attempts. No. This is the NBA today. This is what we need to happen. And this is how Steph Curry's games can continue to evolve as the years go on. He's not the most athletic. He's not going to be the guy who's going to have the ball 24/7 in his hands. That's just not him. But what's not going to change is his savviness off the ball, which he is doing year in, year out. And that jump shot's still going to be water. That jump shot's going to be water no matter what. Shooters shoot, as they say, and that's just never going to leave him. There's a reason why he's the number one 3-point shooter of all time, and that's just going to continue to grow. Jay, I don't know if you have him number one just yet, but I agree with you with the fact that this has to be a serious conversation.
I think the fact that, potential hot take, but not entirely sure. So we'll see how it goes. I think the fact that we had the conversation coming off of last season, Stephen A. Smith drove this narrative that after Steph Curry won his 4th ring, he has the equivalent to the same amount of rings as LeBron James. And then when you factor in the fact that he's a 6'3" point guard that has a skill set that is translatable in a way that's a lot more conducive to kids or just, regular grown people practicing in the gym and learning this skill set, is something that's more translatable to expanding the game, not even just locally, but on a global level. That there's this conversation around the idea of, is Stephen Curry actually the GOAT of this generation, right? Yes. I feel as though if he is in that conversation, the fact when you go through the greatest of all time, Magic Johnson typically is put somewhere around 5th or 6th, probably. I mean, maybe he tops out at 3rd.
Maybe 4. I would say tops out 4.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. I think maybe he tops out around 4 or 5, right? Yeah. You start to debate whether or not it's Kareem whoever at 3,
Yeah.
right? But we have the top 2 locked in. If Steph Curry is being discussed in the conversation of is he the GOAT of our generation, that's in direct combatants with LeBron James. So if you're either 2A or 2B in some people's eyes, that would mean from a Mount Rushmore standpoint that you sit above Magic Johnson, which in my eyes would also mean that you are viewed as number 1 at your position. So if we're looking at it under that umbrella, I think that he should be considered as number 1. And even if we're looking at it in more layman's terms, I just believe that if we're talking about, and granted, your career is not summarized by simply your peak, but we're talking about from 2015 to 2023, that's a 7-year spread
Yeah.
of the type of damage that he's done. Like you mentioned beforehand, whether we want to address it or not, Magic Johnson's career tapped out in a 12 to 13 year span, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the level that Steph Curry has hit in just over half the time, just within that pocket. Granted, Steph Curry was drafted way before 2015,
Yeah.
but in terms of where we view, I mean, he was no scrub back beforehand.
Yeah.
He was just limited and hampered by injuries. There was once upon a time where this was Monte Ellis's team, if everybody
Yeah.
remembers, and it transitioned over to the Splash Bros era. But in terms of totality, production, and impact and influence on the game itself, you could probably make the argument that Steph Curry has had a greater impact on those things than Magic Johnson. Then the winning, the productivity, those things you can probably put on an even level. So that impact, that word impact means that much more, and it leans in Curry's favor.
Yeah, that is definitely a good case to make. I mean, I guess the way to put it, at least when you compare Steph and Magic, is Curry's impact on the sport of basketball is probably greater in that sense. Magic's impact on the NBA maybe just surpasses Curry a little bit because at that time, if you remember, I mean, obviously we weren't born that time, but um, the fact that the NBA was down at its very worst before Magic and Larry came into the league, and they basically saved the sport of basketball by making it watchable again, making it being able to be put on TV once again. You can like also think of like that impact as massive in terms of like what Magic Johnson has done for the NBA. So their impact, of course, like differs in that sort of aspect. But in terms of the sport of basketball, in terms of the way we've been able to like we see like the game transition today, I do have to agree with you. Steph probably has made like probably the bigger impact in that sense. Again, I have Magic Johnson slightly, but if I could see Steph Curry do this for another 2 years, 3 years, then this conversation might switch like definitely in his favor. But I do think it's a very close conversation. And for people who are saying that's not close at all, just watch the last 2 years, man. It's just like, especially at this age, at this level, Steph is still doing his thing. I mean, like this is 13th season we talked about. Magic Johnson retired after 13 years. So if we even just look at their accolades, yeah, sure, Magic has a bit more All NBA appearances, one more MVP, one more NBA championship. But Steph, man, Steph has still been doing this his whole career. He's still not done yet. There's still stuff to build on his resume, and he could definitely do that in the next couple of years. Before we move on, I do just want to shout to Sacramento Kings. They did try, but they just could not stop Steph Curry. Speaking of a team with who's had a disappointing end to the season, going after having some sort of expectations, I don't think the Kings had that sort of expectation, but still, it was kind of disappointing to end the way it did, especially Game 7 at home. But bro, imagine losing Game 5 at home as the number one seed in the NBA. What would happen? The Milwaukee Bucks went down 4-1 to the Miami Heat after being the best team in basketball for the majority of the season. I know the Bucks. I know the Celtics had the number one record for a while, but the Bucks went in there and took it near the end. But man, going down in 5 games to the number 8 seed, a team who struggled for the majority of the play-in tournament, and were able to get bamboozled, whacked by them in that sort of way. This is kind of going off the question that was asked to Giannis at the press conference after the game, asking if the season was a failure, where he said failure doesn't exist. We're only trying to get better, and sometimes you win a championship, sometimes you don't, but doesn't mean it's a failure. But Jay, was this Bucks season a failure?
It was, bro. It was.
Yeah.
This is the championship favorite. It's the first time. I think I saw something. If I can find the graphic, I'll even pull it up for myself. But I think this is like, I think I saw something that said this is the first time that like a Vegas favorite. Here it is. The Heat became just the third team in the last 45 years to knock off the title favorite in round one, joining the '07 Warriors versus the Mavs and then the '94 Nuggets versus the Seattle Sonics. So the first time since 2007 that the overwhelming favorite, and I chose them to come out as well because if you remember, I told you I was worried about the Boston Celtics and I felt like one of either the Milwaukee Bucks or the Philadelphia 76ers was going to take them out first. The Milwaukee Bucks really fumbled the bag on this one. This is one of those situations where they really have to face the music and TV. Something that's very unfortunate is they've got a ton of questions. Brook Lopez is coming off of being a second, like he's probably he probably was the runner-up for
He was.
DPOY
He
this
was.
year,
He
and he's
was. Yeah.
going into this summer as an unrestricted free agent, if I'm not mistaken. When you look at Chris Middleton's situation, I believe he has a player option, but he's probably going to, if he's smart, right, do a Gordon Hayward type thing, reject the player option, and try to get himself a long-term deal worth 80 million plus.
Yeah.
Because now that he is an injury-prone player, he's probably going to factor in his longevity and his ability to maximize his financials while he is healthy because he is up there in age. Drew Holiday is a guy that player option is coming up soon. Jay Crowder, I guess he told the media something along the lines of he wonders why they traded for him, considering he wasn't really getting a ton of PT in this series. Mike Budenholzer might be on the chopping block, deservingly so, with the way that he got outcoached by Eric Spoelstra, and it only further validates the people who were kind of clamoring that the only reason he's had his job this much longer was because he rode the coattails of falling into a championship, which we've seen this in years past with other things. If you look at the Baltimore Ravens in the NFL, for example, Joe Flacco, the quarterback before they had won their most recent championship, was on the chopping block as the quarterback for the Ravens. And then he goes on, has a historic Super Bowl run, and they pay him and instantly regret it, not even 2 seasons later, right? This is Mike Budenholzer. He wins a championship with the Bucks in an unprecedented manner, and then 2 seasons later, here we are looking at him wondering, geez, did you only survive this long because of the fact that we gave you the benefit of the doubt after your championship run? So they have a ton of questions this offseason as a team. They, out of all the teams this year, them and the Clippers are going to have to face the most music because they're two teams that could look very different. Maybe not next season, but the year after that 2024-2025 summer, that's going to be sketchy. Like that year is going to, or I guess it would be 2020, yeah, 2024, 2025 summer.
Yeah.
That's going to be a sketchy year for them in terms of what they do with their teams moving forward. The status of guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, like these two teams, you don't like to deem teams as failures because only one team can win the championship. Giannis mentioned that in the interview that you're bringing up, but when you think about the level of expectations, the circumstances in terms of what they were looking at this season, in terms of facing a Miami Heat team that looked like they had no business even making the playoffs, let alone being this good, and the fact that there's so many implications to the way this season ends, or the way this season ended in their case, these are the two teams with the most pressure, and therefore they are walking away with this as failures in terms of what you guys have dubbed them for how their years went.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, look. I mean, there's a lot of question marks with this team, especially because when you look at the rest of the roster, probably like apart from Giannis, yeah, apart from Giannis, this is like you mentioned. This is an old roster. Milton's 31. He's only gonna start declining from here. Drew Holiday's 32. Brook Lopez is 35. And a lot of their contracts are gonna be expiring soon. Holiday has a player option in 24, 25. Milton has a player option after basically this offseason. And you've seen the rumors of him potentially going to the Houston Rockets to help accelerate their rebuild. You see Brook Lopez being potentially a piece that the Miami Heat will be going after this offseason as well. That's something to look out for. There are a lot of question marks with this Milwaukee Bucks team. And we thought this year, Giannis playing at an MVP level, Drew Holiday probably playing his best basketball in a Milwaukee Bucks jersey, that this was going to be the year, apart from, the fact that Milton didn't look his best throughout the entire year. But it did feel like that. But when it comes to this playoff series against the Miami Heat, they got out coached, they got out hustled, and they got outshot by a team who were one of the worst shooting teams in the league this past year, one of the lowest scoring teams in the league. They couldn't stop one guy. And they're supposed to be the best defense in basketball. There was a lot of things that we felt confident about them going to the series, and we talked about them in those previews, and none of them showed up. Literally, none of those things showed up. Now, in terms of coaching, I do want to preface this for Mike Budenholzer. Unfortunately, according to Darvin Ham, who was a longtime assistant of him, during the middle of the playoff series, Mike Budenholzer's brother died in a car accident. Very, very tragic. So the fact that he was still coaching, I commend him for that, as like something, especially with such a tragedy happening in one's family. Honestly, I still don't know. Like, I mean, like if I was put in that situation, I don't know how I'd be able to coach, but he tried doing it. So maybe that was the case for some of the play call decisions, some of the kind of like the ways like the Milwaukee Bucks were off, or just like the vibes were off for the entire team. But nonetheless, I mentioned this in my old show. Mike Budenholzer had so many questions, even within that championship run. If you remember what happened throughout the Brooklyn Nets series, they were calling for their heads midway through that series. He very much got saved by that championship. He 100% did. And I know this year didn't end up, especially like the way things ended up with his family. I think it gives Mike Budenholzer just a little bit of leeway, especially going into next year. But like you mentioned, the year after, that's when this whole thing is going to change. There's going to be so much difference that's going to be happening with this Milwaukee Bucks roster, not only to try and appease Giannis, who has still 4 years left on his deal, but to try and get younger, because these guys are not going to get any better. We've seen the peaks of Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton already. Brook Lopez has probably been the best year he has had in a Milwaukee Buck uniform. They're going to have to make some changes in order to keep this team more competitive, try to keep them younger so they're better long term. So there's going to be a lot of big decisions to happen with this team. So yeah, even though, again, with the thing that happened with Budenholzer and everything, this year was a failure. I get Giannis' sentiment. I think that the message as a whole is pretty positive. But at the end of the day, when you go into the series where many people, and I don't think a single person I saw has given the Miami Heat a chance in this series. You have that. You have a lot of people thinking that they are the heads-on favorite to win the Eastern Conference. This was 100% a failure of a season. And going forward, yes, you probably can run this back, but after such an embarrassing loss, there has to be some sort of changes.
Yeah, I think the main thing too, and you got to look at it like this way. TV, I was banging the drum for this Milwaukee team heading into the postseason. You remember this? It was 2 weeks in a row. I said Milwaukee, when they go into the postseason, they might have the best defensive five-man unit heading into the playoffs out of any team in either conference, right? You look at it, and it's Giannis, Brook Lopez, Drew Holiday, Drake, Jay Crowder, Chris Middleton, right?
Yeah.
Jay Crowder, Game 1, 12 minutes. Game 2, 15 minutes, 0 of 4. Game 3, 13 minutes. Games 4 and 5, DMP. I'm not saying that this is the biggest hole, but I don't think what you look at when you talk about this team, you mentioned it beforehand, for Jimmy Butler to have the kind of series he had against one of the best defensive units in the league, that comes down to one of two things. Either coaching in terms of simply not being able to scheme well for him, or effort level. But I think either way, you're looking at a circumstance where you have to look at the head man in charge and ask yourself, can he lead you to the promised land as the face of your franchise? I understand that Giannis Antetokounmpo supersedes the Milwaukee Bucks, and therefore he is the guy. But when it comes down to series like these, we've understood this for the longest time. There is a limitation for Giannis Antetokounmpo, which has made it where we've had these debates and these discussions about, like, is Chris Middleton actually the Batman, right? Because of the fact that he has the shot creation ability versus a Giannis Antetokounmpo who kind of only plays one style. This all comes down to the development of Giannis Antetokounmpo as an offensive player beyond this bang-bang physicality aspect that he's been able to impose for the last 2 to 3 years. And it also comes down to whether or not Mike Budenholzer truly is this X's and O's guy that everybody kind of drew him up to be coming away from the San Antonio Spurs system. Those two things are hand in hand. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think we noticed it this year with the way that the MVP race was ran. Giannis Antetokounmpo is exactly who we think he is now. He's efficient. I hate to say it. Again, maybe this is just hot take alert all across the board. We're being very reactionary with the way the first round went. But when I look at the way that this first round went for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I'm factoring in the injury,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at that and you pair that with the way he was viewed this regular season in terms of his MVP status, I think that we have come to the conclusion that Giannis Antetokounmpo has tapped out as being exactly the guy that we've seen for the last 2 to 3 years. And don't get me wrong, that is still an MVP caliber guy. That is a guy who was eventually able to circumvent himself or supersede the
Mm-hmm.
circumstances into being able to get a championship. Although there were some different circumstances and hurdles along the way
Mm-hmm.
that were maybe avoided or pushed in their favor, but nonetheless, they won a championship. But I think that understanding who he is, it's the I hate to keep making I don't know if this is going to be one of those podcasts where I make a ton of football references, but this is one of those things where you see the kid at quarterback come in his rookie year and he goes crazy because nobody knows what type of time he is on. They only have tape from college. They've never seen him do it on a pro level. And therefore, when he comes out and shocks the world, it's because nobody knows how to prepare for him. But in that second year, he's strapped up, he's throwing picks all over the place, can't seem to move around, and he looks like a deer in headlights, and everybody's calling for whether or not he has a long-term career in this league. I think that Giannis is slowly but surely capping out as the guy who's bull in a china shop, and everybody is starting to get a better understanding of, look, if you can hunker down on this guy by matching his physicality, he's just a regular dude. He's just a regular dude. And I hate to deem a dude who's a 6'11 demon in terms of what he can do as a regular guy, but he's a dude who shied away from the free throw line towards the end of game 5. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Because despite the fact that despite the fact that he got to the free throw line as much as he did, what, 23 times?
Yeah. 23. Yeah.
23 times, but I think he was 13 of
10.
23.
10 of 20.
Okay, I know it was less than 50%.
Yeah.
So horrible from the free throw line, despite the fact that he was getting there. Towards the back half of the game, we got to a point where in freaking overtime, Grayson Allen, with the season on the line, Grayson Allen touches the rock last.
Yes.
Insanity in terms of what you look at for this team moving forward. And you look at a guy of Giannis's caliber and you ask yourself, why did the ball end up in Grayson Allen's hands with your season on the line? These are all things where I feel like we're questioning not just the Milwaukee Bucks, like what they're made of, but I think we have to question. Oh, yep, it's a hot take episode. I think we got to question if Giannis really is the best player in the league. I think we have to ask ourselves, with a limited skill set that comes down to when you get to playoff basketball where the physicality kicks up, now that everybody gets the gimmick, is Giannis really that good? Is he really that good to be a championship caliber player that we're viewing as the guy who's the next torchbearer past a LeBron James or Steph Curry?
That's definitely going to be something to look at. I mean, right now he's 28 years old, so like he's still at the peak of his powers in terms of like his athletic ability and stuff like that. But he's going to have to adapt at some point. I do agree with that. Him shying away from the free throw line at the end of the game, not a good look. Them not being able to call a timeout in the last 2 minutes and overtime as well, not a good look as well for Coach Bud. The fact that Grayson Allen got the ball at the final possession when you have Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Brook Lopez all in the same court together is not a good look. Just a lot of question, like let's keep it a buck. The Bucks just look completely discombobulated at the end of that series. They look completely discombobulated, and at times you have to make sure it falls on the shoulders of the lead guy, and that is Giannis Antetokounmpo. He definitely has to be questioned, and I think for the first time in a while, where it felt like Giannis was the unanimous best player in the world for probably the last 1 or 2 years, if you made the argument for someone else, I get it. If you want to make the argument for Steph, You want to make the argument for Jokic, who has been just as good, if not better, in the playoffs so far than he has in the regular season. You can make those arguments, and I wouldn't be mad at it. I think this is the first time in a while where Giannis is best player in the world. Candidacy is being questioned. I probably might still think that's the case. I wouldn't want to let one series to completely change my view on it.
Fair.
But it's something to look at over the next few years. That throne is not safe, and he has to keep it warm for the next guy who could possibly take over that throne. Who knows who it could be? We're gonna have to wait and see. But man, that was just that was ugly. That was an ugly way for the Milwaukee Bucks to go out. Not good at all. A lot of changes. There's gonna be a lot of question marks going into this offseason for sure. But moving on to the next topic, again, we're talking about teams that lose. that are losing. But a lot of these teams we're gonna be talking about next are considered young teams for the future. And I'm gonna frame this discussion in a way where, kind of like how we did with the coaches talk. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. Jay, I'm going to pose a question to you. Out of these three teams that got eliminated in the first round, whose future are you most confident in? The Memphis Grizzlies, the Cleveland Cavaliers, or the Sacramento Kings? All young teams, all teams with a very bright future, but they lost in ways that, in terms of the Grizzlies and the Cavs, very, very, I would say pretty in a pretty bad fashion. But the Kings really did a good job in trying to compete there. But which future are you most confident in within those three teams?
I think if you have to look at all of them and just wonder about what's gonna work the best, I think it's still Memphis, bro. I think it's still Memphis. Defense translates. John Morant is still probably the best player, arguably, of all the players that are going to be discussed. Now, him versus Swiper is a real conversation right now. Very hot conversation right now. And Donovan Mitchell obviously is in this conversation. And maybe some would argue that Donovan Mitchell is better than Ja. I think that's an interesting thing to table as well. I think that Jaren Jackson Jr. of the group might be the best second banana. Again, now this comes down to how you feel about a guy like Darius Garland, for example. Or I guess maybe how you feel about Domantas Sabonis. But I would say that in terms of a top two, I think that Memphis is still walking around with the best top two of the group. And I think that out of all of these teams, they have the best flexibility moving forward because they're the team that we've been asking. And we've had this conversation on the podcast before, and I've even tabled this on my own personal podcast, is the idea that when are the Memphis Grizzlies going to make the decision to package their guys that they've developed internally to go after the next disgruntled superstar, right? They have the draft capital to do so. They have the internal organizational development of guys that can make some guys a very intriguing trade pieces if somebody wanted to get younger quickly. And they're a team that, look, whether you like it or not, they understand their identity. And that's something that you do have to give real credence to. Now, let's look at the arguments against the other two teams, because we can't just say Memphis is better, boom, that's what it is. Yeah. The issue with the Sacramento Kings is, we need to see more of it. We asked the same thing of the Memphis Grizzlies, and they've done it 3 years in a row. And now we're starting to have a real conversation about them. The same thing goes for the Sacramento Kings. Every team has a flash in the pan year. This may be the Sacramento Kings. I don't believe so, because I believe they're now as competent as they've ever been. And they have some real star power on their team with a real deal head coach at the top of things with Mike Brown. But we still need to see it. That's number one. Number two, I think we're starting to learn that Domantas Sabonis in the postseason is still one of them guys that we got to wonder about. We got to start asking ourselves, for real, is Domantas Sabonis just a regular season demon? And if that's the case, they're going to win a lot of games. But just like the Indiana Pacers, they're going to top out as this first-round exit kind of team. Yeah. So those are my two biggest issues with the Kings. My biggest issue with Cleveland is Evan Mobley going to get the opportunity? Because what we saw from this past series against the Knicks, flat no. Out hustled him and Jared Allen, out hustled by Mitchell Robinson, can't happen. Yeah. New York Knicks handled their business with a hobbled Julius Randle. We're talking about an all NBA caliber player this season in Julius Randle, and they didn't even need him to win this series in 5 games. Yeah. That's crazy. But you know what it's off the back of? Something we beat the drum on with the Portland Trail Blazers for years, and they still haven't figured it out. Can you win a championship with a small guard backcourt? Can you get it done? So far, so good for anybody who believes it's no. And it's only got further validated in this series with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. The Knicks, we talked about this in the preview. The Knicks brought the physicality. The defense was there. They had every facet of guard you needed. Lead guy, Jalen Brunson. Big time physical extendo clip guy in Josh Hart, who was a big time rebounder in this series.
Yes.
Emmanuel Quickly, hot. What was it? Quentin Grimes got a start in this series somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They had the flexibility and the physicality to compete with the small guards of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it put them on ice. And it's something that we've always been worried about, like I said, dating back to those CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard teams. And this has kind of been a thing just universally, is like, can small guards win you championships? That's why so many people doubted Trae Young once upon a time, right? And maybe still doubt him. Those two issues, the Evan Mobley unlock, the Evan Mobley unlocked, and the Donovan Mitchell Darius Garland pairing are their two big questions. So I think that when you look at Memphis, you just have to ask Memphis, A, when are you going to pull the trigger on a big package? And B, when are you guys going to grow up and finish the job? Because every single time that you guys run into a problem where you have to show your maturity as a basketball team, you flaked out. Let's be real. Because the only time you didn't was when Minnesota out-tanked you. We were talking about the series last year. All respect. Minnesota we had this conversation. Minnesota had that series last year. And the only reason they lost that series is because they outsold the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies undersold Minnesota just enough to push the game to game 7, and they had home court advantage.
Yeah.
Other than that, we could be having a completely different conversation about the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Memphis Grizzlies, where there could be a roles reversed based on how last year went.
Yeah, that's 100% true. It did go to 6 games, but you're right. It was just it was the Grizzlies, like, let's be honest, did not play a fantastic series there. There are definitely some times that were just completely, like, did not look like themselves. The Timberwolves had it. They just couldn't do it just because they couldn't hit shots themselves, and they couldn't be more mature than the Memphis Grizzlies, which is pretty crazy because the Memphis Grizzlies are not that mature of a team as shown in this series. I have to agree with you though. I guess the way I'm gonna do this is do a ranking. I'm gonna go 3 to 1 here. 3, I'm gonna go with the Cleveland Cavaliers. You mentioned the small backcourt, not very confident in it. The front court, the fact that they just don't show any. Yes, they're a great defensive one. Yes, they have some scoring outbursts from Evan Mobley here and there. Jared Allen was a one-time All-Star. No toughness, no heart there in that front court, and they need something. They just need to either get that in the offseason or just really look themselves in the mirror and say, we got to toughen up ourselves. But like you mentioned, that 3 position is such a hole in that Cavs team. How are they gonna address it? Because they gave away all the draft capital. They don't have. I don't see any young players on their bench that can garner some real attention. I mean, there's going to be people like OG Anunoby on the trade block. How are they able to get them? I don't think the Raptors, and I'm speaking as a Raptor fan, maybe even as a Raptor organization, they're not going to accept a Karis LeVert, Lamar Stevens, Isaac Okoro type trade, especially without any draft capital. That's just not going to happen. They gave up everything to get Donovan Mitchell, and yes, it worked out a lot in the regular season. Donovan Mitchell was absolutely fantastic. But the small backcourt complex is just something that just doesn't work out in the postseason, like you mentioned with the Portland Trailblazers. And now you have this glaring hole at that 3 position, and I just don't know how you're going to be able to address it. I just don't know. And I think just them with their lack of flexibility, I think that out of all these teams, this is the team that's probably going to stay put. And I just don't see how that issue is going to be addressed. I have them at number 3. And number 2, I have to go with the Sacramento Kings. I think Domantas Sabonis can be a very competent player in the playoffs. I just don't like the fact that the Kings had him as their defensive anchor. I just really don't like that. I wouldn't say that this is possible, but a Miles Turner type player at the center position, I know it's a freaking Indiana Pacers all over again, but just something like that, just like just someone who can who is athletic, someone who can like go block shots. Honestly, to a short, like to a smaller extent, maybe even someone like someone like a Mark Williams, just something like that, where like you have like just some sort of defensive like backing that you don't have to rely on Domantas Sabonis as the center for this team. Which, as you see it against Kevon Looney, he got freaking absolutely dominated on the boards, and this guy was the rebounding champ in the regular season. This just cannot happen. But they still have some really nice young players if they want to pull off a trade. And they have their draft picks. They didn't go all in on Domantas Sabonis. They had to trade away Tyrese Halliburton, which he's turning into a star of his own, but they didn't have to give up any like too much crazy draft capital. There's still some flexibility in that roster, and I think there's two ways this team can go. Either the way of the Golden State Warriors back in 2013, 2014, where they lost to the LA Clippers, and then they just got better from there. Or they could be the Atlanta Hawks, where they had a 1 year flash in the pan, and they just did not either. They thought, you know what, we could do better with this team and not make any changes, or they can try and make a major change and really try to cement themselves as one of the top teams in the West. But in terms of the Memphis Grizzlies, and this is what I am very confident in them going forward. Yes, they've shown their immaturity in the past. This year was a freaking clown show. Let's be completely honest. This was a clown show from start to finish. The John Morant situation, Dylan Brooks throughout the entire year, starting with the feud with Draymond Green and just translated into the NBA playoffs with LeBron James. This was just a clown show on and off the court. This is the type of season that could really humble a team like the Memphis Grizzlies. And John Morant mentioned it in the press conference. My off the court antics really distracted this team. And I think in that very moment he realized them talking all this, trying to build themselves up as this like demon team next up in the playoffs. You should be like, we shouldn't be worried about us. Like we're not worried about the rest of the Western Conference. That stops here because they got humbled not just last year with the Golden State Warriors. They got humbled hard by the Los Angeles Lakers, who we mentioned it for 70% of the regular season. They were buns. They looked like they were dead in the water, but they freaking turned up in the final, like maybe final quarter of the season, and then faced Memphis. And even though it wasn't 6 games, felt like they had full control of the series. Felt like they had full control. This is the type of season where it really takes, it really helps a star like John Morant, someone like Dylan Brooks, to really look in the mirror and say, we got to be better. We got to stop our talking and let our game do the talking. And I think that Taylor Jenkins understands this too. He is probably, in my opinion, the best coach out of the three that we've talked about here. Even though Mike Brown has been great so far, I still think that Taylor Jenkins, especially with this roster, has done really good things with them, and I think is still building towards a bright future. There's a lot of positives to think about there. Plus, you have the draft capital. Plus, you have the young star talent to pull off a trade for the next disgruntled star. They are very, yes, their attitude has been pretty poor so far, but they're only getting a year older. They're understanding what it means to get humbled in the playoffs. Everyone's conning them right now. This is their chance to bounce back. This is their chance to look at themselves in the mirror and say, we are not just a talk team. This is us to really show it on the court. And they have the guy in John Morant to really turn the team around, because as much as his talking has got them into the position that they are now, his leadership is going to really show in this offseason in the way they conduct themselves going into next year. That's something to look at. And I think that right now, with the star player that he is right now, and plus just the flexibility like you mentioned earlier, they got to be in the best position to, especially like just going forward and like trying to become a contender.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're making a lot of great points. And they got to make a decision on Dylan Brooks this summer. Hopefully his talking didn't talk him out of a contract. That'll be a good thing to really take a look at. They also do have the caveat of the fact that Steven Adams did not play in this series. So they can lean on that. Granted, it's not the biggest defining moment, but definitely, we talked about it before, and this team definitely started to look a little different after seeing Steven Adams go down. He historic rate from a rebounding standpoint, especially from an offensive rebounding standpoint. That would have been huge in a series where you're the team and it's not close. We mentioned that if there was any way that the Lakers were going to come out of this series, it was going to be off the back of their physicality, the build of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and the fact that they were just a bigger squad between Anthony Davis, LeBron, Rui, Jared Vanderbilt. They were just a bigger squad, and it showed. They played that way. They played bigger than the Memphis Grizzlies, and it played in their favor. I told you, the Lakers drew a crazy matchup in round one coming off of the play-in tournament. And I had a weird feeling it was just going to continue to snowball effect in the favor of the Lakers. And so far, so good, man. Now, granted, the Warriors are going to be a tough out. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But, dude, so far, so good. The Lakers turned their season around, and they are now in a situation where they go into yet another series where maybe they probably shouldn't be favored against the Warriors. But I don't think we look at their series against the Warriors and say, yeah, they're about to get smacked down. I think they have a competitive shot.
Yeah. And honestly, let's not talk about it later. Let's talk about that right now.
Okay.
Lakers versus Warriors. LeBron versus Steph. The first time we've seen this sort of matchup since what, 2018? Since we've seen a LeBron versus Steph. I mean, we had 4 straight years of that, and honestly, that's when a lot of NBA fans were freaking tired of the NBA because of the exact same matchup happening 4 years in a row. But 4 years later, 5 years later, we're getting it once again. It feels like this could be the last time, especially with the age that LeBron's at, the way that the Warriors are progressing. Who knows what happens to them after this year? But we still get it one last time. Lakers versus Warriors. Jay, what is the biggest thing you're looking for in this series?
The biggest thing I'm looking for is, can Kevon Looney do what he did against the Memphis Grizzlies? Can he duplicate that type of stuff against Anthony Davis? That's going to be the main thing. I'm telling you, the size of the Lakers is the equalizing factor for them in any given series. Jared Vanderbilt, physical, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Rui Hachimura playing above it. Austin Reeves is a downhill driver all of a sudden. Okay, cool. Yeah. I like that. He's been a guy that they want to put the ball in his hands a little bit more, and it really shows. One of the things that's not being talked about a lot when it comes to the Lakers is when they made those trades, they increased their depth capacity. It showed in the 6 games. When you go back and look into this series, they had a different leading scorer in all 6 games. Yes. D'Angelo Russell was the most recent guy. I think he dropped 31 in game 6. They produced a very effective game plan to attack the Memphis Grizzlies in a way where a different guy got to be that guy on any given night. Funniest part, we got to go back to the Memphis Grizzlies series for just 1 second. Funniest part about that series, Dylan Brooks says, I don't respect them. They're old, this, that, and the third. I'm not fearing anybody till they give me 40. Well, buddy, how about
they lost by 40?
LeBron James gives you a 20-20 game. Then you close the series out losing by 40 points, and you didn't even crack 100. 100. You didn't even crack 100 in game 6. Okay. You look back at this series and you talk about what the Lakers are able to do. There's 2 things that are going to make them very effective in this series against the Warriors. A, the defense is showing up. The defense is there. Yeah. We saw it in the Memphis Grizzlies series, and I think it's something that can translate in a series against the Warriors. Number 2, the LeBron James Anthony Davis pairing is as good as we think it is. Granted, Memphis came in a bit hobbled, especially in the front court when we talk about Steven Adams being out. But those 2 guys playing at the level that we saw in that first round series lets us know that when they're clicking, they are still as good of a duo as we've always kind of projected them as whenever we add the win healthy tag. Yeah. Those 2 things, guess what, are what won them a championship. Yeah. Shocker, right? This is the formula that won them the championship. Granted, bubble championship, Walt Disney, the whole shebang, whatever. Cool. Nonetheless, the very method that won them a championship, shockingly enough, is the method that has helped them go from being a borderline, couldn't even make the play-in team, to a team in the second round with a real chance to continue to move forward. Shocker.
Yeah, this is gonna be honestly, I'm so excited for the series. I am so excited to see what both of these teams are gonna be able to show. Yes, the defense of the Lakers is big, especially in the interior. But what worries me about this team? I mean, you did a lot to praise the Lakers, but man, how are they gonna stop the Warriors backcourt? How and who are they gonna throw on these guys? The freaking Sacramento Kings tried Terrence Davis, De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell. None of that mattered. Absolutely none of it, because Steph Curry is just that guy. We talked about it all in the first segment, how great this man is. The Lakers don't have the bodies to throw at Steph the way the Kings do. they don't have the who's gonna be the first guy they're gonna put on him? Probably Austin Reeves. And fair play, he's gonna stick to him like white on rice. Not no pun intended. I swear to God. I swear to God, no pun intended. But it's I feel like the defensive personnel on the Lakers on the perimeter, especially with the way that Steph Curry is absolutely rolling right now, is gonna be extremely tough for them just to try and kind of get out of the series. I really do think so. Now, the interior, they got that on lockdown. I think that Anthony Davis, you mentioned Jared Vanderbilt, LeBron James, the Kings couldn't they couldn't make the Warriors feel them. They didn't have the aggressiveness. Sabonis at some point in the game 7 was not even looking at the ball to try and rebound it. He was just trying to push Looney out the way. That was how bad it was. Anthony Davis, Jared Vanderbilt, they're not afraid of this. They know that Kevon Looney they're going to go into the series, especially paying attention to detail. They're going to try and get in front of him. They're going to really help let him feel the body and really try and focus on the interior glass. I think in terms of interior defense, they are good. In terms of the offensive end, I think they're going to produce enough on that end. My worry for this team is, especially coming off a series where you're facing a Memphis Grizzlies team that does not have a lot of shooting. Besides Desmond Bane, I do not trust many other shooters on that roster. You're facing probably the best shooter of all time and probably the second best shooter of all time. This is not going to be an interior battle. This is going to be a clash of styles. All downhill, Los Angeles Lakers, get to the free throw line, all that. The Warriors, they're going to spray it from 3. They're going to have Steph Curry attempt once again. I mean, he attempted 38 shots in game 7. This guy's going to be getting a lot of shots on the perimeter. They're going to get a lot of opportunities up there just because I just don't think the Lakers have the personnel on the outside to help deal with someone like a Steph Curry and chase him 24/7. Dellavedova was on the sidelines during this Kings series, and I bet you he was trying to tell all those young guys about trying to deal with Steph Curry, and none of that worked. There's nothing on the Lakers perimeter that's gonna help me change. Otherwise, he's gonna be a deciding factor in the series. And in terms of the interior play, outside end, the Golden State Warriors have always been. That's what they're gonna continue to do it here. The Lakers have to continue to play aggressive in the series. I do think that as long as they're healthy, they do stand a solid chance. But the perimeter shooting, especially of the Golden State Warriors, and the way they ended that series is something I'm very, very concerned about. I would be very concerned about if I'm the Los Angeles Lakers. But Jay, in terms of this series, who do you have winning and how many games?
Now, in terms of your perimeter thing, I do want to address that by just saying that I do think Jared Vanderbilt could be a serious X factor in this series. I understand what you mean from an interior, but in terms of guarding the Warriors, you do have to ask yourself who needs to necessarily press up on Draymond Green. No offense to him, but in terms of offensive threat, I don't know if you need your highest hustle guy in terms of Jared Vanderbilt being pinned to him. Now, if he ends up getting the Andrew Wiggins assignment, okay, completely understandable. But I think they have the flexibility between guys like Jared Vanderbilt and LeBron James to maybe end up taking on that assignment. Nonetheless, not an easy assignment. If I had to pick somebody to do it, I would actually pick Jared Vanderbilt because he's my best hustle guy. So in terms of running through a million screens and all those things, he's the guy that looks the most prepared to be able to deal with it. Now, unfortunately, that might not be the greatest thing to fall back on, but I think when you talk about the matchup, you're definitely right there. But I think you make a great argument that the Lakers, the clash of styles is big because I think the Lakers internally, in terms of their interior effect, both offensively and defensively, is going to be what game breaks for them and the ability to put pressure on the rim. Because pretty much everybody that they play, except for probably Malik Beasley, is a guy that puts pressure on the rim in some way. Maybe D'Lo to an extent as well, but I think all of them are this team is predicated off of driving. So either driving or finishing inside. So either way, I definitely agree with you. If I had to pick a team to win,
it's a tough one, bro. It's a tough one.
I think it's Warriors in 6. I think it's Warriors in 6. I think travel isn't going to be an issue for either team, obviously, both being in California. The Warriors have home court advantage in this series as opposed to the series against the Sacramento Kings. Very notable for this team, right? In the way they've been, even including this postseason. They finally got a road win, which
Yeah.
shows they're capable of at least getting one.
Both. They got two. Game 7 as
Well,
well.
yeah, game
Yeah.
seven
Game
as
7.
well,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
two, yeah. But
Yeah.
the first one was the one
Yeah.
that we needed to
Yeah.
truly believe, like, okay, they cracked the curse, right?
Yeah.
In terms of that. So they got two road wins, huge for their confidence level. They have home court advantage this go around. Steph Curry's coming off of one of those type of games. If you listen to Draymond Green in the post conference, the post presser, it sounds like Steph Curry is a different type of dialed in too, in terms of where he is mentally this postseason. Yeah, man. And inside out play is translated very well for the Warriors in series where they just play much faster than their opposing teams.
Yeah.
So I think Warriors in 6.
Yeah. One quick point about your Jared Vanderbilt thing. I think he is probably their best option on Steph Curry. But when Steph Curry is running around like that, like running around like that, that's gonna freaking tear out Jared Vanderbilt real quick.
Yeah.
This is a tough series. One of the things that the Lakers need to do, because I think we know what we're gonna get from LeBron. We know what we're gonna get from Anthony Davis. I think we know that going into this. If D'Angelo Russell and Dennis Schroeder can give you a combined like 35 points from that backcourt, just like scoring from like the point guard position, that's going to be massive. That's going to be absolutely massive because that means they're a threat from the outside. They're able to hit their shots when LeBron, Austin Reeves, Vanderbilt, Anthony Davis puts pressure on the rim, Rui Hachimura as well. If they give you like maybe 30 to 35 points a game, that means they're hitting their shots. That means they're doing what they're supposed to do. So if they're playing well, that's going to give the Lakers a really good shot. Now, has anything this season shown you that they're able to do on a consistent basis? Probably not. But it's something to look at. By the way, you were talking about the Lakers. I really thought you're gonna get them. You're gonna have them winning this series. So that was something.
I don't know if I could pick them 2 series in a row. The Memphis one just felt like something that, again, with the momentum they had, it really was leaning in their favor. I think they still have great momentum. I just think the Warriors are in a different lane, and I think that the Warriors understand their style more than Memphis. I think Memphis can get so erratic with how up and down they play that they lose themselves. I think the Warriors, when you got to cut up and decide that it's one of those Steph Curry games, well, guess what? We know what the result of that can get like. And I think that you make the good point about who's going to guard him. Dude, the backcourt is the weakest link for the Lakers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that makes that question even easier to answer, which is nobody. Steph said it when he was asked, who's going to stop Steph Curry? He said, I hope no one finds out. Well, guess what? In this series, it's a mystery for all of us. So it's going to be tough to see what happens because regardless of who they put on him, it's going to be a long-ass series, TV. I don't know how any else to put it. It's going to be a long series for whoever has to deal with that.
Yeah. My prediction is going to be tough. This is going to be a really tough series. I think the Lakers... I think there's going to be someone besides LeBron and Anthony Davis that's going to surprise a lot of people. It was Rui Hachimura in the last series. We might have there's going to be especially because it's the Lakers, there's going to be a conversation where either they're like D'Angelo Russell, is he going to get back if given the right opportunities? Is he going to be near a max level type player again in this league? If he has a really good series, I could see that headline on ESPN now after a Game 3, Game 4 type of performance. We already seen that with Austin Reeves earlier in the season. I just feel like there's going to be that one player that's going to garner a lot of media headline attention after a big game, and it's going to have a major impact on the series. Don't know who that is yet, but I think that's something that we're going to have to find out as the series progresses. I'm going to go... I think the series goes 7, man. I really do think the series goes 7, but I'm going to go with the Warriors. Back in Chase Center, back at the Bay. We've seen this is the first. I think this is the first time probably since it's been. This is the first time in a while Steph Curry has been in a Game 7, and now we see what he is able to do in the most high pressure situations. With that still being the case, and you still have guys like Jordan Poole who has yet to be unlocked. It's Klay Thompson who I didn't think had his best series in the first round. You have all those factors going against you. And again, I talked about D'Lo being a major X factor on the Lakers side of things. If Jordan Poole can find himself, it's game over for the Lakers. If Jordan Poole can find
Facts.
himself, then that is over for them. Because if you can't handle Steph Curry and we know how Jordan Poole can get hot real quick, just look at last year's playoffs, then it's over for them. I think that the Lakers are going to have their moments. There's going to be a lot of surprise performances, and we're going to be like, oh, how much do the Lakers have to pay them in the offseason? How much are going to have to pay this guy in the offseason? That's going to definitely be a lot of questions being asked in the series. But when it comes down to this Game 7 performance, which I do think we're going to get to, I'm going to trust a guy who is able to backpack an entire offense, be able to change the course of a game by not even touching the ball, in Steph Curry. I'm going to go with that, and I think that the Warriors are going to win in 7. It's going to be a really tight series, though. It's going to be a super tight series. Any final thoughts?
This is the series of the second round. It doesn't matter. This is the series of the second round.
Honestly, this series and the freaking Nuggets Sun series are going to be nuts to go to a kind of like this Western like second round is going to be super, super fun to watch on both sides. Yeah. Unlucky for us East guys, we have to stay up late to try and watch these games, but it's going to be a fun one nonetheless. Moving on to the next topic in the series, we're going to be looking at our predictions. I know some of you guys aren't following the TikToks and stuff like that, but we're going to basically give you I'm not going to say recaps, but kind of give you a reminder of what each of our predictions were for the other series and take them over to the pod, kind of give maybe some quick thoughts on why we think each of these series are going to go. It's going to be more rapid fire because if you want to see kind of our reasoning as well, check out the TikToks, like I mentioned, TikTok and Instagram at Hit Your Free Throws, so check it out over there. But we're going to be rapid firing through the second round series and just kind of like expanding on why we think each series are going to go the way it is. Of course, some of them started already. The Heat are up 1-0. The Denver Nuggets are up 1-0 on the Phoenix Suns. But we're going to go through each of them really quickly and give our quick thoughts on them. Firstly, starting with the Heat-Knicks series. The Heat are up 1-0 right now. I know, Jay, what was your prediction on the series, and has anything changed after that Game 1 performance?
I believe it was Heat in 6.
Yeah, it was Heat in 6.
I believe it's Heat in 6, and it was just off of the back that I think that the Julius Randle injury is going to matter. I think that Jimmy Butler is in a totally different stratosphere. I think that the Knicks are good, and their guard play is something to take a look at, but something that has to be notable, and I actually looked at the stats a little bit earlier, the presence of Kevin Love in the starting lineup is actually having an impact.
Yeah.
Kevin Love in the starting lineup, the Miami Heat are 4-0. The team is clicking. They're playing really well. Playoff Jimmy is not a myth. We had this conversation beforehand. Yeah. And the Miami Heat are a team that we come into every postseason doubting because of this or that, and they give us a reason not to. We had more of a reason to fear them underperforming against the Milwaukee Bucks than we do against the New York Knicks. And that's no offense to the Knicks at all, because one of the caveats I threw out when I picked the Miami Heat is their defense, being the Knicks, their defense will be the deciding factor on whether or not this series goes the distance or if the Miami Heat handle this as light work. I think that so far, so good. This was a game that was relatively close, being Game 1. It got a little way towards the end. I think it ended 108-101, but this game was kind of handled around the 3-minute mark of the fourth quarter. But I think there's been some net positives from the New York Knicks that can show that they can definitely bounce back. And if they get Julius Randle back at any point in this series, that changes the dynamic for them exponentially. So I have the Heat winning in 6, but like I mentioned in the TikTok, the Knicks defense can make this sketchy.
Yeah, I think I also had the Heat in 6 as well. A lot of the fact that I was leaning on heavy on playoff Jimmy Butler, his injury though in that fourth quarter really was tough to look at, and it basically reduced him to a spot shooter in the final 3 minutes of this game. But one of the things that are really really giving me hope in that prediction still, I'm not going to move off of it, even though I'm kind of worried because of the Jimmy Butler injury. The other guys, even in Game 1, when Jimmy Butler was down, they stepped up, man. They stepped up in a big way. Kyle Lowry, my guy, absolutely just went off in that fourth quarter, not only as like someone who was able to score, but just as a leader of the basketball team. And Jimmy Butler mentioned after game how much his leadership impacts the Miami Heat team, and it's just carrying over to the playoffs. Gabe Vincent being able to step up big. Bam Adebayo having a very good fourth quarter as well. The Miami Heat guys are showing up at the right time. And even against the New York Knicks team, who had a very good first half, the Miami Heat locked down, making them struggle in the paint in the second half. I still think that the Miami Heat still have that little, like, just that grit, that edge in that series. Even with a hobble Jimmy Butler, I still think that the guys, again, just caught fire at the right time. And I just trust that they're able to do that throughout the entire series. I don't know if the Jimmy Butler injury has anything to affect your thing, though.
No, it wasn't really taking that into factor. I think the other thing that just needs to be mentioned, because I'm going to keep pounding the drum the entire postseason until the Eastern Conference Finals passes, the East is all about physicality.
Yes.
It is. The entire Eastern Conference postseason is going to be which team is going to hit you harder. The Knicks were able to beat up on the Cleveland Cavaliers. That was seen mainly just in the matchup between Mitchell Robinson versus Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, especially in that closeout game. The Miami Heat are not that kind of squad. They are not going to be punched in the mouth by physicality. I would even argue I don't think they will be fazed by the Knicks' physicality. I think it will be a factor, but I don't think it's going to be so much of a factor that it throws things off kilter and all of a sudden the Knicks flip this where they go up 2-1 and now we're wondering for the Miami Heat, oh, are they safe? No, I think that the Knicks could make this competitive, but the Miami Heat are definitely in the driver's seat because they're the team best built for a team like the Knicks, even with how physical they play.
Yeah, 100%. I do agree with that. I just hope that Jimmy Butler, he's been so good these playoffs. I just hope that we could still see more of the Jimmy Butler magic. And hopefully Julius Randle comes back in the series to make it a lot more interesting. Yeah. Next series, we're gonna start again in the Eastern Conference. A series that actually is going to be starting tonight, the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Boston Celtics. I had the Boston Celtics in 5, I believe. Jay, remind me, I think you had Boston in 6?
Yeah, Boston in 6.
Yeah. And one of the biggest reasons, at least I talked about too, Joel Embiid not playing game 1 as announced just a couple hours ago. Jay, what was, like, give your quick reason as to why you thought that the Boston Celtics were going to handle the Philadelphia 76ers? What feels like once again.
Joel Embiid injury strikes again. It was one of the things that was factored in beforehand. I didn't know how much time he was going to miss, if he was going to miss time at all, but it's without fail, bro. It's baked in. It's baked in at this point. And it's something that I probably should have had stronger feelings about when I was doubting the Boston Celtics as championship contenders coming out of the East was the Philadelphia 76ers seem like the type of team that's built to be able to be competitive with them. And I still think they are. Even if Joel Embiid misses the game tonight, I don't think that they get blown out. Now, maybe this ages horribly, and I'll end up on TikTok tomorrow saying, oh, I think this game is going to be much closer than we think. Boom, Celtics win by 25. You know what I mean? But I think even with the talent on the floor, James Harden being as good as he is as a one-on-one guy as well, might be able to still make this a very competitive game and make this a very competitive series, even if Joel Embiid misses significant time. But my thing was Joel's physicality in the interior. I think that Robert Williams is a great matchup for him. I still think Joel Embiid is putting 35 plus on him nightly because of just how effective he is, not just on the interior, but the ability to step out on the perimeter. And he's really showed out this season with his ability off the dribble to create for himself. I just think the Celtics got too much for them, though. Again, the switchability. They've got it across the board. We got a Derek White series. Jeez, you know that you know that's brewing something up. You've got Tyrese Maxey's gonna either have to see Marcus Smart, Derek White, or Jaylen Brown. Good luck. Same thing goes for James Harden. He's gonna get some combination of those guys. You know whose name I haven't said yet? Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum might be able to get away with this series guarding. He might be able to legitimately get away with this series guarding Tobias Harris for most of the series.
Yeah.
100%. That's one of your top perimeter defenders, and he's going to be probably on, the 4th option offensively? Yeah. That's insane to think about. The Joel Embiid injury makes it where maybe this series could end sooner than I'm giving it credit, but I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the Sixers, who have a guy in James Harden who is due for a game, like as a solo act. He's due for a game. Maybe it's tonight. But even if it's not, I think that there's somewhere in this series where James Harden blossoms out and he gives us one of those vintage Houston Rockets James Harden performances where he backpacks the team to an unprecedented win.
We need that. We need this in the series to stay competitive. We need that. We need the Tobias Harris from round 1 who averaged 23 points a game. We need that from the 76ers. And we need the 76ers Tyrese Maxey that absolutely dominated the Toronto Raptors last year. Because, like you mentioned, the Embiid injury strikes again. And I hate to say it. I said it in my TikTok this morning. It feels like Groundhog Day every year. Joel Embiid just getting injured at the worst time possible for the 76ers. I thought after 10 days of rest, yeah, Embiid's gonna play. He'll be fine. It's worse than expected, and it comes at the worst time possible. Who could have predicted that? I know that this is something that was everyone was hoping wasn't gonna happen, but it turned its ugly head once again. I had the Boston Celtics in 5. I think it could be more competitive if we just see those three guys clicking: Harden, Maxey, and Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris really needs to be big here, especially as the number 3 option, probably for the most of the series, because I don't know what the status of Joel Embiid's injury.
Yeah.
The Celtics, we know what they're going to be about, and now that they see blood in the water with Embiid not playing, this feels like a type of team where at times I feel like in the regular season they did play down to their competition, but I think with the scare from the Atlanta Hawks, I think it woke them up.
Great point.
I think that going into the series, they're not going to take this team lightly. They saw their life flash before their eyes when they thought that they were going to end up losing that series. When the Hawks made it really competitive in Game 6 and they absolutely turned up in those final 5 minutes, they're like, okay, we are the better team. We can't take this lightly. I think they're going to carry that over to this series, and I think that's going to be a key message that Joe Mazzulla does mention in that locker room, or is it definitely be pushed in that locker room. I'm taking to my Celtics in 5, to my 5 prediction. That Embiid injury just absolutely hurts them. I just don't see the 76ers really bouncing back for that. It's just terrible timing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What are you going to say?
I agree.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on to the final series before we go into the final segment of the show. We have the Western Conference Series, the Denver Nuggets taking on the Phoenix Suns. The Denver Nuggets are up 1-0 after the first game, after basically everyone contributed on that team. It was just an absolute show to see. Jamal Murray, Jokic, Aaron Gordon, all those guys had their moments. It was just a fun team to watch. And as for the Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker did their thing. Where was everyone else? I don't know. But that was how that game 1 went. I had Denver Nuggets in 7. Jay, what was your prediction once again?
I think I had Suns in 6. I was very big, Game 6 heavy this second round.
Yeah, but Jay, any reasons you would have it, and did this first game kind of tilt the scales for you in any way?
I think it gives you a little bit of a scare if you're favoring the Phoenix Suns, but I still feel kind of confident because at the end of the day, the 2 top guys did exactly what they needed to do. I think the biggest question is just who's going to be the third banana, and I do think there's a capability for Chris Paul to step into that lane. I do think there's a capability still for DeAndre Ayton, who, mind you, historically speaking, has had pretty decent series against Nikola Jokic in the past. So I think there's a world where DeAndre Ayton being unlocked in this series could be good momentum for them moving forward if they want to make a real championship run, but also could be very big for them in a series like this where I think you need DA to be locked in. We know what KD is giving you. We've seen what Devin Booker is giving you. I think Devin Booker was like a top 3 player out of anybody in the round 1 of the postseason. 100%. I think arguably he might have been top 3. I think he was top 3 where you rank him amongst the top 3.
Yeah, it's because there's Jimmy and Steph as well. Yeah, Jimmy and Steph.
Yeah, I had Jimmy, Steph, then Devin Booker.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that the fact that he's a top 3 player this postseason so far, and then you have Kevin Durant, who hasn't been a slouch at all his dang self, that makes them extremely dangerous, and all they need is that third banana. Like I said, I think DA could actually be that guy, and he's built for a series like this because he's shown in the past that he can hang against a guy like Nikola Jokic. Now, he might not go toe-to-toe counting stats-wise, but he's able to keep Nikola Jokic at bay in a way where even though Denver has some much improved depth, name a deep team that's going against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and you feel confident about it. I've never feared depth if you look at 2 guys at the top of the totem pole like those and said, yeah, but how deep that team is, I'm scared for them. No, because in the postseason, we get down to a 7-man rotation anyway. So my top 2 guys firing off for 30-plus nightly, I'm going to go with the guys who are going to be on the floor for at least 40 minutes.
Yeah, 100%. I had the Denver Nuggets in 7, and I'm going to be for real with you. This is not me trying to get a hot take or anything. I think this is going to end in 6 now. I do think that this Denver Nuggets series is going to end in 6. Mostly because of the fact that there's just so much uncertainty with this Phoenix Suns team, and that was something I was worried about going into the series. We know what Devin Booker's going to give you. We know what Kevin Durant. I'm not even going to talk about them because we know that they're going to give you basically 30 a night from both. DeAndre Ayton, for me this series, he's not going to be locked in. We haven't seen it like there hasn't been a time where I feel like DeAndre Ayton is just gonna come out and take over. That's not in his DNA. This guy's a freaking max contract player, and he's not gonna be able to give you any of that. This guy at times last game was ball watching, while Nikola Jokic was just absolutely toying with him. They need that guy in the interior to really like kind of like roughen up Nikola Jokic, really toughen him up. DeAndre Ayton is not gonna give him that, not at all. And you talk about a 7-man rotation over there in Phoenix. I don't even think they know what their 7-man rotation is because it's going to be a mixture of maybe Landry Shamet, maybe Josh Okogie off the bench. They haven't even used campaign, for goodness sake. The fact that they can't even figure out a 7-man rotation so far, that worries me. And they've had like all the first round. They absolutely dominated the Clippers. They couldn't figure it out then. And the fact that they're still trying to figure this now in the second round series very much worries me. The Denver Nuggets, on the other hand, if Jamal Murray could continue the streak he's on right now and match the production that Devin Booker's given you, then it's curtains. It's curtains for the Phoenix Suns. Because if Jamal Murray can average 30 a game, you know what Nikola Jokic is gonna give you rebounds, assists, points. And then you add in a 17 from Aaron Gordon, a potential 20-point night for Michael Porter Jr. Bruce Brown is giving you like 10 points a game or more, along with KCP as well. I know depth doesn't scare you with these guys, but when you have two of your top guys matching the production of those two guys and then getting some from the other guys, that's what worries me about this series. I said Devin Nuggets 7. I'm even going to the point where I think that's going to end up in 6.
I mean, I can't argue with it too much just out of the fact that what's the best way to put this? If Denver is as good as we've seen all season, and this is not about hypotheticals and personal worries and things of that nature, and Denver is just as good as advertised, they should have this series in the bag because between their depth of versatility and the fact that they might have a 3-time MVP on their team leading the ship with Jamal Murray playing, like you said, at a match level of a guy like Devin Booker, who's going to be an All-NBA candidate this year, Denver Nuggets should be able to put this one away. I just think that the talent of Phoenix is going to carry them, and a team like Denver is going to have to prove otherwise and do it early. That's why I think stealing game 1 was huge for them moving forward. I think that's huge for them. But TV, the saying goes that the series doesn't start till the road team steals a win, right?
Yeah.
So right now, we got to look at it under control from that perspective. I do think that this is a series where maybe the Denver Nuggets maintain their strong home defense at the Mile High, but I think that the team that steals a road game is going to be the team that ends up defining where this series goes, and we're not positioned to see that yet. I think that if the Phoenix Suns steal game 2, things go right back to where we had them before the series started, and maybe some of your fears are not nearly as concerning after game 2, but it depends.
We'll have to wait and see. And I think this again, same thing with the Lakers Warriors series. This is definitely gonna be a series to watch, especially with the heavyweights that we have on both sides. It's gonna be a fun series and a lot of offense. Hopefully, we get a lot of offense because we have some of the best offensive players in the world, and on both of these teams. But yeah, those are our recap of our predictions of the other 3 series. Let us know down below what you guys think, and give us your predictions as well down below. Final segment of the show, and you know what time it is. It is time for another quiz. And man, the quiz from 2 weeks ago was such a blast when we did the guess the player based on the teams that they played for. I'm decided to bring it back once again. Jay, I have 3 players here for you today that we are going to be testing you on. And once again, the rules of the game. I'm going to be giving you 5 teams that each of these guys have played for, going from their least notable to their most notable. I'm going to give you a guess after each turn. Let's see how you're going to do it this time. You did pretty well last time, so I do have confidence in you for this one, but it's going to be very interesting to see. Again, these are all current players. I'm not reaching into the bag of former players just yet, but these are all current players. So here's the first player I'm going to give you. First team I'm going to give from this player, the Memphis Grizzlies.
The Memphis Grizzlies, least notable. Okay, can I ask a question about this before we really get into it? Are all of these players going to be players in the postseason, or this is just universally?
Universal.
Okay, just want to make sure. I didn't want to reach too bad.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna guess him though. Yeah. Jay Crowder?
No, I'm not gonna repeat players. I had him in the last episode, so I'm not gonna
Oh,
repeat it.
okay.
But yeah, no, I like that guess. I do like that guess. Second team though, the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Cleveland Cavaliers. Holy. Okay. Wow. Okay, that makes it kind of interesting. Because now I'm trying to think of guys that have played on both teams. Dang. I'm gonna find out that he's like on a team that I like had no clue. Go ahead and skip it because I feel
Skip
like
it.
whatever the next team will kind of seal the deal.
The Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh shoot. Okay, maybe it doesn't.
Again, another reminder from the last episode. The current team doesn't have to be the last team.
Yeah.
Here, it could be anywhere. It's just going from least to the most notable.
Yeah, no, yeah, no. Los Angeles Lakers, man, that wasn't the jump I was expecting. Okay, let's recap the three teams again.
The Grizzlies, the Cavs, and the Lakers.
The Lakers. What the heck?
I have a feeling that you're gonna get a lot from these last two teams. I'll say that. These last two teams are gonna really open your eyes to it.
I'm trying to think of it to do that because the Lakers have been through some rotations, bro.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have to skip that one too.
Skip one? Okay.
I don't want to drag it out too long.
Next one, my Toronto Raptors.
What the heck? See, because like the answers seem like Lakers to Raptors. I'm like Marc Gasol, but we're not talking. We're talking current, right? So
yeah,
I mean,
current player.
Oh man, that's brutal. What the heck? I'm not gonna lie, this one's got me stumped bad. Toronto?
I think when I give you the last team, you're gonna get it like almost instantly. I hope you do. I think you might get it instantly after the last team.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
The San Antonio Spurs as their most notable team.
Wait, what? That's current? Wait, like we're talking like currently?
No, he does not play for the San Antonio Spurs currently, but that's his most notable team.
Is it Danny Green?
It is Danny Green.
Okay, I'm like, wait, what the heck?
Danny Green, yeah.
You know what it is? It's because Okay, so the Cleveland Cavaliers, like, okay, I get that one. Memphis, it's because he didn't play. So that I understand. Toronto, duh, the championship. Lakers, duh. Okay. All right, cool. I like that one. Dang. Danny Green, bench dweller. You got me with that one. Not gonna lie.
No worries. All right. I'm going to give you this next guy. Again. This is pretty funny. But we're starting with the Grizzlies once again.
Oh. Holy cow. Oh, not retired. Okay, because we gotta make sure we get that one. We gotta make sure we validate this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we're talking least notable again. Also important. What the heck? Because again, when you go least notable, I'm gonna go Andre Iguodala, like duh. But he's not in the league right now, right?
He is.
I mean, does he count? Yeah, I was gonna say Andre Iguodala counts.
There's Andre Iguodala.
I didn't know if he counts as retired or not. Because like
on the Warriors roster right now.
I mean, he's on the Warriors. He's on there, but
you
know what I mean? Like, not disrespect Iggy, but I'm just saying, like,
it was Iguodala.
All right.
So it's the Grizzlies I'm gonna go with, then the Miami Heat.
Oh, I would have for sure got it if you said Memphis, then in Miami Heat, I was gonna go Iguodala whether it was a good guess or not. So I'm glad I got it on try one.
So yeah,
that was instantly gonna be the guy I came up with.
Yeah, so Grizzlies, Heat, Denver Nuggets, Philadelphia 76ers, and then the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, definitely. Like Miami, I think I would have guessed it regardless just to test it. By the Denver Nuggets, literally it would have been locked
up. Man, you got it on the first try. I like that. That. When you mentioned Iguodala, I'm like, come on, he's still on the roster.
I was gonna say he is, bro, but it's like, come on, man. Shout out to the Point Forward podcast. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's a good one. Okay, do I want to go? I have a few guys in the chamber here, so I'm gonna see like which one I want to go with. You know what? I'm gonna go with this guy over here. Okay, the first team I'm gonna say for this guy is the Denver Nuggets.
Ooh. Huh. Let's just kind of get some guesses out the way. Jeremy Grant.
I like the thinking, but it's not Jeremy Grant.
Okay.
Next team, the Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay. Denver Nuggets, Milwaukee Bucks. Huh. Okay. Ooh, that one's kind of tricky.
Actually, I was gonna go with another team, but I might have made it too hard for you. But it's fine. Don't worry. Okay, it's fine. You can throw a play out there. You can just throw a play out there. If you need the next team too, I'll give it to you.
Just go to the next team. Go ahead.
Okay. Mets de Guanabo.
I'm sorry. What?
Mets de Guanabo.
So they're not in the league anymore.
Mets de Guanabo.
What the? Wait a minute.
Mets de Guanabo.
What the heck? Wait a minute. What the? Wait a minute. Wait. What the? I know this is wrong, but I'm gonna just say it anyway. Dwight Howard? Like, I know that's wrong.
No.
What the heck? Wait. I was not expecting a non-NBA team. Wait a minute. That's brutal. What the hell? Yo, that's good. Okay. What's the next team then? Wait a minute.
The New Orleans Pelicans.
What the?
The New Orleans Pelicans.
I'm sorry. What?
I really wanted to just say that name so bad.
What the hell?
I'm telling you right now, he's played for other NBA teams, but I feel like that team is more notable. I feel like that team is more notable than some of the NBA teams he's played for.
Oh my gosh. Shout out to my, maybe I'm disrespecting Emmanuel Mudiay?
No. He did go overseas. I have no idea where he went.
I know. That's why I was like, oh, man.
Okay, this team should give it away. This next one. The Sacramento Kings.
Oh, shoot. That's bad. Is it Boogie?
It is Boogie.
Oh, that's brutal.
DeMarcus Cousins.
Dang.
He is not retired, but he is currently playing for the Puerto Rican team Mets de Guanabo.
What the heck? Man, dude, that one threw me for a loop. That's research in the back. I know, and I think I recently saw this. It's supposed to be like some type of 2-year contract with them or something.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
I do I do remember that, but like, what the, bruh, that man better go over there and drop like 40 a night and get back over here ASAP. Because what the heck?
He better be. This guy thinks that he's
coming up in our quizzes as a Puerto Rican player, dude. As a Puerto Rican league player. We're not doing that, bro. That's brutal.
Okay, to be honest, I think I shouldn't have given you the Bucks. I should have gone you to Golden State Warriors instead of the Bucks. But still, I just really wanted. I just really wanted to say that name. So
that's insane. I'm like, wait, is he serious? Like, I was like, wait, I need you to repeat the name again, because what?
That just tells you what if we do this once again. Be on the lookout for some potential.
Clearly, because I was about to say Mike James earlier, so I was like, man, I was just on the lookout for how deep you delved in, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
That was a good one. That was a good quiz. If you have any other players that you want us to try and do, let us know down below. That was definitely a fun one. I really just wanted to get that DeMarcus Cousins one out there. That was too fun. But yeah, this is the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching. Jay, before we sign out, what do you have to say to these beautiful people?
Bro, the second round is even more of a heater than the first round, and we got a seed. We got a different number seed for every single matchup. That's insane to look at. So the fact that the second round is going to be going just as crazy as the first one, man. All offense on one side, crazy defense on the other. It's going to be some great series to watch.
It is going to be 100% some great series to watch, and we're going to be covering that all on this podcast as well as the TikToks and Instagram. So remember to follow at TV on TV on Basketball at the Knockdown J, as well as hit your Free Throws podcast on all the social networks. Subscribe, hit the like, all the good stuff on the YouTube, and as well subscribe to if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. But yeah, this has been another fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching or listening. We are signing out. Have a wonderful day. That's Jay. This is TV. We're signing out now. Peace.
Peace.